Adam couldn't believe his eyes as he stared out over his yard. A strong smell hung in the air, burning the small crowd of people's eyes as they stared. He didn't know what to say. They were all staring at him, bewildered by the sight before them. Adam felt rage bubbling deep within him. He couldn't believe what his neighbor had done. Looking into the distance, he saw the blue lights approaching. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Adam was hard at work when he first received a frantic call from his wife asking him to come home immediately. At first, he said that he couldn't, but that all changed when she told him what was going on. Adam left work immediately, not even bothering to tell his boss where he was going. He had serious business to attend to. The drive home felt like it lasted a lifetime. For the entire time, Adam sat quietly, trying to remain calm. But his blood was boiling. He couldn't believe what had happened. He asked his neighbor to mind his own business for weeks, but he didn't listen. Now, everything was destroyed. When he finally reached his street, he noticed the large crowd in front of his lawn. When he pulled into his driveway, all eyes were on him. He sighed and removed his keys from the ignition, but just as he opened the door, the smell hit him. He had to stop himself from gagging right then and there. Stepping out of his car, he could see his neighbor, John, standing in the middle of his yard. He couldn't believe the carnage his neighbor had left for him. But things were about to get a lot worse. The second he stepped out of his car, his wife rushed out of the house to join his side. Neither of them could believe the sight before them. "I was in the kitchen when he did it," his wife told him. "I didn't notice until it was too late." John was covered in the substance as he angrily glared at Adam. If he had listened to him, then none of this would have happened. Adam wanted to storm over there and confront him, but his wife's words stopped him. "He called the police on us," she said. Adam Murphy lived a simple life with his wife, Georgia, in Orlando, Florida. They lived in a beautiful neighborhood and were lucky enough to have great neighbors among them. But there was one neighbor who Adam couldn't seem to get along with. His name was John, and he was always involving himself in the couple's business. But in recent weeks, John had found something new to complain about. It was in the middle of fall, and one large tree in Adam's yard had been causing some trouble. As they ventured deeper into the fall, the tree began to make quite a mess. Leaves and branches scattered Adam's yard, and unfortunately, some had even reached John's yard. As time went on and the situation worsened, John grew tired of sweeping up the mess in his yard. He threatened to cut the tree down more than once, but Adam continuously warned him to stay away. The truth is that Adam had also grown tired of the maintenance, but he discovered something truly strange about the tree. It prevented him from cutting it down immediately. It was a Saturday morning, and Adam had just gotten home from a morning run. John was in his yard, staring at the tree with a sour expression on his face. Adam, being a decent man, decided to wave in his direction. But John's response wasn't as kind. "If you don't get rid of this tree anytime soon, I'll come into your yard and cut it myself," John called. Adam chuckled and shook his head. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, John. You never know what might be inside," he said before heading into his home. Adam had been wanting to get rid of the tree, but he knew that he would have to get professionals in to deal with that problem. He never thought that his nasty neighbor, John, would go through with his threats. Adam had tried cutting down the tree, but he was horrified to find a strange substance inside. He knew that this was not one man's job. He would need professionals in protective gear to handle the job. John was unaware of this fact, but he would soon learn a costly lesson. But that week, something truly unexpected happened. It was Monday, just before noon, when Adam received a call from his wife. He was in the middle of a meeting and ignored the call. But when Georgia called again and again, he knew he had to answer. Something was seriously wrong, it seemed. It was a frantic call from his wife, asking him to come home immediately. At first, he said that he couldn't, but that all changed when she told him what was going on. Adam left work immediately, not even bothering to tell his boss where he was going. He had serious business to attend to. The drive home felt like it lasted a lifetime. When he finally reached his street, he noticed the large crowd in front of his lawn. He sighed and removed his keys from the ignition. But just as he opened the door, the smell hit him. He had to stop himself from gagging right then and there. The smell was potent and sickening. Adam felt like he was going to pass out as he stepped onto the sidewalk. He looked out over his yard, his heart breaking when he saw the tree. It had been cut into, and now liquid was pouring from it. His grass was covered by thick, brown slime. He was mortified. If only his neighbor had listened, he could have avoided this for a few more weeks. Now, The secret he had worked so hard to hide was on full display. He didn't know the law around it, but he was sure he was in trouble. He just hoped they could fix the problem without getting the police involved. He tried to avoid the man standing in his yard, but knew he'd have to face him. Taking a deep breath, he turned from the crowd. There was his neighbor, John, standing amid the destruction. Adam couldn't believe what his neighbor had done, and things were about to get worse. The second he took a step closer, his wife rushed out of the house. Neither of them could believe the sight before them. Georgia tried to swallow back tears. "I thought we could wait a few more weeks before we'd have to deal with this," she whispered. "Do you think John will call the police? Will we get in trouble?" Georgia asked quietly. "Knowing him, probably," Adam muttered. "I just don't know how bad this crime is." But what was pouring out of the tree? As the neighbors stared, judgment hung heavy in the air. None of them knew the full story. This was a big deal to Adam and Georgia, and being watched only made it worse. Their beloved tree had been cut open, thick brown liquid gushing out, flooding their yard with a stench worse than anything Adam had imagined. He had warned John to leave it alone, but the man had ignored him. Now the consequences were unbearable. George's voice broke the tense silence. "I was in the kitchen when he did it. I didn't notice until it was too late." "Stop. Maybe if we handle the situation right, he won't call the police. We could get into a lot of trouble," Georgia said. Adam knew she was right. He needed to calm down before doing something he'd regret. "Hey, Adam," John called from across the yard, a grin spreading across his face. "Good luck explaining this to the police. I've already called them." Adam's heart dropped. It was too late. The damage was done, and now they'd have to face the consequences. He feared what would happen to him and his wife. When he learned the disturbing truth about the tree months ago, he had been told to act immediately, but he hadn't. Could they arrest him for negligence? Georgia clung to her husband, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so scared," she whispered. Adam wanted to comfort her, but he was frozen. What if they were charged for putting others at risk? The smell was unbearable. The thick, brown liquid oozing from the tree made everyone step back. Adam could only imagine the kind of bacteria or disease festering in the rotten wood. Neighbors covered their mouths, whispering to one another. When Adam looked at John, he saw nothing but disgust. John stood ankle-deep in the foul substance, his shoes ruined. The stench burned everyone's eyes. Adam stared at his destroyed yard in silence, unsure what to say. Every eye was fixed on him, waiting for an explanation. Then, in the distance, flashing red and blue lights appeared. He swallowed hard. What could he possibly tell the police? He should have handled the tree sooner. Would they see him as the one responsible? The police car pulled into his driveway. John sneered. "You're not getting away with this." A tall man stepped out of the vehicle, his badge gleaming. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm Officer Jones." "Someone reported vandalism to their property," he said, glancing between the men. "That would be me," John replied sharply, pointing at Adam's yard. "This man's tree has been messing all over my property for weeks." Officer Jones looked down at John's grass, a few leaves and twigs scattered across it, and frowned. Then he turned to the foul scene in Adam's yard. "Well, what happened here?" he asked. John spoke quickly. "I tried to cut his tree down. I begged him for weeks to control it, but he did nothing. When I finally took matters into my own hands, this disgusting liquid came pouring out." Adam's pulse quickened. John had just admitted everything. The officer tilted his head. "So, you entered this man's yard, cut his tree, and caused this mess? Did he give you permission?" John hesitated. "Well, no, but I warned him I would." A faint smile crossed Adam's face. His neighbor's arrogance had just undone him. The officer continued. "So, to confirm, you called us about vandalism, but you're the one who damaged his property?" John's face went pale. The officer gestured toward the tree. "And what exactly is this substance?" Adam finally spoke. "I trimmed it a few weeks ago. The tree started dying last winter, and rainwater collected inside. It's been rotting from within for months. I had plans to remove it professionally, but the work hadn't been scheduled yet." Officer Jones nodded. "That makes sense." He turned to John, who looked stunned. "Sir, you entered private property and caused significant damage. You'll be responsible for the cleanup and compensation." By the end of the week, the rotten tree was removed, the smell slowly faded, and peace returned to the neighborhood. John was forced to pay for the damages, a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. In the end, Adam and Georgia came out stronger. Their secret was no longer haunting them, and their meddling neighbor had finally learned to mind his own business.